Rebuilding a Burnac Vulcan model steam engine toy. Part 8. A test run using compressed air shows some problems. They're not serious, but it makes me think that a few modifications to the basic design would be a good idea for the video. Here is the engine completely back together, but I haven't fitted the water gauge. What I need to do is find a way of putting some compressed air into the boiler. After descaling the boiler, I used an endoscope to have a look inside it. And the part that you can see sticking out into the inside of the boiler is a bush for the screw that holds the cover plate of the water gauge in place. Here's the original water gauge, and quite frankly I don't like the look of it. You can't see through it very clearly and it's rusty. Here are the collection of parts once I dismantled the engine. I've done quite a lot of cleaning, and since this image was filmed I've painted the burner and the base. What I'm doing here is threading the two holes into the boiler. I'm threading these two holes in the boiler 1/4 by 40 threads per inch, but I haven't gone all the way through with the tap, so it's a tight fit for the blanking plug. There is a reason for this, and it will become apparent later on in the series. Threading these two holes is not detrimental in any way. In this clip you can see that I've fitted a blanking plug into the top hole and a normal double steam union into the bottom one. This allows me to connect a compressed air line, which is a piece of silicone rubber piping, which holds the pipe securely in place on the fitting. Now it's time to feed the boiler with about 15 pounds per square inch of compressed air. But quite a lot of the compressed air is blowing out of the hole, which is supposed to accept the screw, which in turn fits into a bush, as shown in the previous endoscope image. I threaded this hole 5BA and put a 5BA bolt in it to stop the air from leaking. Now it's time to see whether the engine works. At the moment it's a disaster area. The oscillating cylinder and the connecting rod and even the crank web are fine. But then it rapidly goes downhill with the crankshaft, the wear in the bearings and the way the flywheel fits on the end. And attempting to make this flywheel run true was one of the strangest things I've ever done. Normally you would tap the flywheel or grab the flywheel and bend it, but this is so bendy it's like having it on an elastic band. I would like to say that these Burnac Vulcan steam engines are not rare and they are very cheap, and what I could do is buy a new boiler by just buying another engine off eBay, stripping it and using that, but no, I think I'm okay with what I've got. The oscillating cylinder, the port face and the crank web are absolutely wonderful things and very accurately made, and as you can see the engine runs very well indeed. But it is impossible to get the flywheel to be concentric at all speeds. When it's going at full speed it appears okay, then you slow the engine down and it's wobbly, and literally you only have to touch this flywheel and then it doesn't run concentrically anymore. Here I'm undoing the nut on the end of the flywheel and changing its position on the crankshaft. That clunk and the accompanying noise is my compressor, which is supposed to be silent, but it's far from silent, and it's currently filling the 50-litre tank. In this clip you can see how little pressure I'm putting on the flywheel in an attempt to improve its concentricity, all to no avail really. I think this is about the best it's ever going to be, but it's not good enough. If this engine was a vintage Bing or Marklin or similar, then I wouldn't even think about modifying it. It would be a sympathetic restoration. But I'm so pleased with the way this oscillating cylinder part works, I think it's worth making this into a reliable engine. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to machine a pair of phosphor bronze bushers and solder them into the brass bracket that holds the crankshaft. Then I'm going to make a stainless steel crankshaft, which will be a good fit in the bushers, and once I've done that I think the flywheel may start to rotate with some degree of concentricity at all speeds. I'm going to test the throttle valve. It's only a 4BA brass bolt and it throttles the exhaust, and it does it beautifully, so there's nothing wrong there. I will however machine a proper stainless steel valve with a hand wheel on the end. And as for the water gauge, well, the original water gauge I thought was absolutely awful. And I've come up with an idea that will allow me to fit a proper commercial water gauge to this. A water gauge where you'll be able to see the level of water in the boiler. which will be far better than the original water gauge arrangement that personally I think was awful. In this clip I'm checking that the burner fits under the boiler, and indeed it does. The flywheel is still wobbly, and in this slow motion clip you can clearly see that the crankshaft is wobbling all over the place, but you can hear that the beats are very even, so the mechanics of the oscillating cylinder are perfect. Let the rest of the rebuild commence. It's time to stop playing with the engine. I'm removing the flywheel. Here it is, not the best aluminium casting I've ever seen, and I'm going to paint this first of all with self-etched grey primer, and this is no good for aluminium to be honest, but it's such good paint and it sticks very well. A viewer wrote in to comment that how come when I spray aerosols into the caps of aerosols the paint doesn't go everywhere? And the answer, dear viewer, is quite simple. I do not press the button very far in. If I press it all the way in, the paint goes into the aerosol can cap and then bounces back, and I end up with it all over my hand. So just don't press the button quite so hard. You have to have a gentle touch with these jobs. To finish, here's the usual shot of some paint drying, and I'd just like to say stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.